Okay, there you go. Again, good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who are just coming in, make sure that you're in the right place. We are fr from PACE, Pacific Asian Consortium in Employment, located in downtown LA, and I am one of the procurement specialists for our Business Development Center. And we are here to understand business grants. For a few things about PACE, so Pacific Asian Consortium in Employment has been around since actually the PACE has been around since the 70s, but our Business Development Center has been around since 1993, and we've provided business training, technical assistance, one-on-one counseling, and access to capital to many, many entrepreneurs like you. We are a SBA microloan intermediary and also a CDFI, which is a community development financial institution. So basically, it means that we can help with lending, whether you're here to get something for working capital or for equipment or inventory or even for real estate. We are a CDFI, so we're like a bank, but we don't do the traditional retail services like banks do. And we also host an award-winning women's business center. And the Women's Business Center is supported by the SBA. And we, basically do the same technical assistance as other programs to provide in-depth, outcome-oriented business services to men and women. So even though it's called the Women Business Center, we just don't help women. Both startup up to publicly traded and established business owners, representative number of whom are economically and socially disadvantaged. So right now, I'm also running part of the Women's Business Center program. So that's good to hear about that. And then I am also we also host the MBDA program, which is the Minority Business Development Agency. And as part of the U.S. Department of Commerce, we at the MBDA team here in Los Angeles works with three things. One is providing access to capital. So we connect to private lenders, banks, and investors. We provide access to contracts. So I specifically work in the procurement portion of MBDA, where we assist with contract bids, looking at them, and then also researching procurement opportunities for you. And then also we provide access to markets, positioning to expand client base and operations to global markets. So if you are interested in exporting to different countries, please make sure that you go to the December grant workshop, because we have a special guest, which is from a special agency in California called GoBiz, and they have a grant called the STEP grant. And the STEP grant is a grant given by the by California in order to help with facilitating trade overseas. So she will go more in depth with that one, but I know that you can get up to $10,000 for trade-related activities, which includes going to expos. So right now there are a few different expos that they're going to be participating in, including a cosmetic expo that is located in Italy next year, and also one in Dubai. So that one is a really, really interesting program and a grant. So, but yeah, just make sure to watch out for that one. Just a little table of contents. So we're going to do some housekeeping items. We're going to do just an overview on the type of grants that are out there, best practices for getting grants, exploring the available grants. That one will be sent to you after this workshop. So typically what I do is after the workshop, I send a list of available grants that are for the month. So I didn't do one in October. So there will be some recurring grants in that list, and also some new ones that are available for the rest of the year or for next year. And then also some Q&A later on. Okay. Just a few housekeeping items. Please make sure to mute yourself while the presentation is going on. Use the chat function, which you guys have been doing, so I totally appreciate that. And do the raise your hand function in order to participate. So if you can also use the Q&A, and I will try my best to both look at the chat and the Q&A. But Yeah, so but if I don't get to your questions today, just know that you have information about me, my contact information, so you can reach out to me after. If you can't hear the speakers, make sure your computer audio is turned on. I know we've been having some issues on that one. Hold questions as much as possible until the appropriate time. If I have time in between the sections, I can look at the questions at the chat function. But if not, I'll try to get to it as much as I can later on. And then also use the chat to introduce yourself or post questions. And some of you guys have been doing it already. Oh, question. Okay, great question already. Said can from Jessica, can you help nonprofits? So this one is basically for business grants. However, the theory behind applying and the best practices are very similar to nonprofit grants. However, some of the sources for nonprofits versus business grants are a little bit different. But I will try to incorporate a little bit about the nonprofit world as I go through the grants. As I mentioned, the sources of grants for profits are a little bit different. So I'm gonna try to make the distinction later on. But let me see. So it seems like, yeah, seems that you are coming, a lot of you are from California. Oh, okay. There is one from Alabama. So welcome, Alabama. I think you're the farthest one. Yes. So yes. So continue on introducing yourself on the chat. Okay, let's get started. So first one would be, what are the types of grants? So question on the chat. Please let me know and chime in. Have you gotten a grant before? Because I'm curious, and I'm sure everyone is curious. And then also, actually, first question, have you applied for grants before? And then second question, if you want to answer, is whether you've gotten that grant or not, right? And then later on, maybe we'll try to dissect why you haven't gotten a grant, or maybe the reason why, right? As you go through the best practices. Okay, so yes, it seems like, well, congratulations. It seemed like Giovanni had applied for a grant and won. So tell us on the chat which one it is, because we're curious. And some of you have applied for the first time. Okay, yesterday, yes and yes. Okay, great. So some of you have won grants and have applied and won. So that is excellent news. Those are the ones I like to hear. Yeah, so for those of you who have won grants, please, if you want to share which one it is, especially if it's a Verizon Digital grant, because I know so many have been applying for that one, and it seems like I have not met anyone who's won it. So I know that there have been different cohorts, but I am very, very curious. So please feel free to give us some more information. So just a few of the types of grants. Some of you may be familiar with it, some of you may not. So one are government grants. And what are government grants? Government grants are maybe the ones that you're most familiar with, I'm assuming. So those are the grants that come in from different levels of government. So whether it's your local government, which means the city or the county, the state government, so state of California, or is the one from, I think it was Marlowe from Alabama, and then also the federal government. And they are there to support various aspects of business development, right, and public policy. And then the second one that are pretty familiar are industry-specific grants. And industry-specific grants are those that are tailored to businesses in particular industries like technology, agriculture, or renewable energy. And one thing I didn't mention here are the ones that are related to restaurants, because as we know, in the past several years, because of COVID, the restaurant and the food industry have been greatly affected. So I had seen a lot of industry-specific grants that had come in or sporadically come in from the past couple years, including one from DoorDash. And then there was one, yeah, there are a few different ones that I've seen that cater to restaurants, and it could be restaurants of different sizes, also restaurants of what, like some of them only offer it to brick and mortar, some of them are just food, food companies in general. So Yeah, so those are the ones. And as I said, a lot of these grants are a matter of a business development and public policy. So if there's something that's going on in a particular industry that they want to pour money into, right? So that's when we see these type of grants pop up. Then the third one are R&D grants, which I'll talk to you in particular about. So R&D grants are aimed at fostering innovation and technological advancements. So these are if you have any new ideas that are innovative or new, there are some grants that cater specifically to that one. And then the last one would be demographic specific grants. So those are the ones that are tailored to specific demographics like ethnicity, gender, veteran status, or location. So the one in location correlates a little bit with the government grants because usually the government grant is, let's say, if it's the city of LA. So then a lot of times then the grant is offered for those who are doing business in LA, right? So that one is a little bit, it's a little bit related to the government grants. Okay. Oh, great. As I'm going through the chat, oh, it seems like Donna has won a Lendistry grant, Office Depot, National and Local Urban League. Oh, that is great. Okay. Yes, LA City Legacy Business Grant. Oh, great. So that means that you probably have been around for over at least 20 years, right? So I think that's what the Legacy Grant was all about. Right. Okay. And then someone from Long Beach had received microgrant for startups. Yes. So this is great. What I want to do is for people to really look at the other grants that people have applied for. And so, for example, if you Google Long Beach microgrant for startups, right? And that's probably a grant that's recurring or, happens every year. So if you are, maybe that one you have to be in Long Beach, either a Long Beach resident or your business has to be have a business license in Long Beach. So thank you for sharing, guys. Okay. Okay. So now I'm gonna go through a little bit of the business practices. Actually, before that, okay, so just a couple questions. Yes, will you have access to the PowerPoint? This is recorded, so I will do the recording link after this. But what people are very interested in would be the list of grants. So that one I will definitely share. Yes, and then yes, but the PowerPoint, no, but the recording will be. So first of all, let's look at the best practices. First one would be a very, very simple, but I also just love to reiterate it is make sure that you do your research, right? So, and that is really, I think I would say the bulk of the work because I see that a lot, it's getting harder and harder to find grants nowadays. I think 5 or 6 years ago, it was a little bit easier. Even after actually a little bit after COVID, there were a lot of grants that were available, both from industry specific grants and government grants. So first is looking for grants that align to your business industry goals and location. So there are various sources that I also always mention, including government agencies, private organizations, and foundations. So the first thing I always tell people is that look at the government website. So check the government websites at your different levels of government. So as I said, whether it's a city, county, state, and federal level, look for agencies like Small Business Administration, which often provide resources and information on available grants. However, most importantly is check as we had seen earlier, there was someone from Long Beach who got a microloan for startups, right? So first of all, I always recommend checking the government website of the city and the county that you're located in. Um, because I know that a couple years ago, sporadically, I know that there was one from Artesia, there was one from, obviously from LA, different parts. There was one from Santa Ana, so that they offer specifically to to businesses that are located in that area. So first is checking out just where your location is, and that I think is the low hanging fruit. And because what also happens is that people are not very familiar with these grants. And so what happens is that they're uh, obviously, if the people don't apply, then competition may not be may not be we would be on in your favor, right? So, for example, I know that there was a grant from the LA County called the LA County Economic Opportunity Grant. And that one was offered last year, and that grant was expanded three times or extended three times. So initially it was available in February or ended in February, then March, then April. The deadline had been extended, and I'm assuming it's because they don't have a lot of pool of applicants, and so they wanted to open it up more. But that one, for example, was a great one, and I know that it was extended a few times. Oh wow, okay. So Giovanni said you won that grant too. Is that the one from the LA Economic Opportunity Grant? Because I'm very curious. You've won a lot of grants, so yeah, that's excellent. So second one would be doing your research and looking at private foundations. So many private foundations offer grants that are particular to businesses, particularly those focused on specific industries, causes, or regions. So research foundations that are relevant to your business and explore their grant programs. So this is the one where I'm going to talk a little bit about nonprofits. So obviously, right now we're talking about business grants, right? However, private foundations also offer grants to nonprofits, right? So for example, if you're a family foundation and then you look at and then let's say you're a private foundation, let's say the Gates Foundation. I know that they have been giving out $1 million grants to specific nonprofits. So if their cause is on um, hunger or economic development, right? So they usually have a specific focus. And what I tell people to do is that every foundation or nonprofit has to file something called a 990 to the IRS. And usually the 990 form would have to indicate the types of grants that I had offered in the past, right? So let's say you look at someone's 990, let's say the Gates Foundation, and you see that they seem to have a specific target on music or music and art. So you kind of have an idea of the type of industries that they give grants to. And then second of all, is that once you look at those foundations, you may also see a pattern on the location or the geographic location of the grants of the grantees that they give out grants to. So that gives you indication because I know, for example, I have worked with some nonprofits and they offer and they've looked at family foundations and they see, for example, if they only give out grants in the state of Alabama, for example, right? Because that's where they're headquartered or that's where they have a special mission, then you know not to waste your time on those ones, right? So just a little plug on those who are doing and then own the lead nonprofits. Okay. Okay. So more on doing your research. So aside from government agencies and also foundations, I also recommend going and looking at corporate grant programs. So some corporations like Walmart or Target, or I said DoorDash, even Etsy and eBay, they offer grant programs as part of their corporate social responsibility initiative or to support businesses that are aligned with their own mission in industry. So make sure you explore corporate websites and community outreach programs for those potential opportunities. So for example, I know that there was one I think that was offered by Etsy. For those of you, or eBay, and those ones particularly mentioned that you have to be an eBay customer, right? So of course, what they want to do is to be able to support those that use their services. So this one also applies to nonprofits as well. So for example, well, let's say if Walmart is giving out corporate grants, they also have a foundation that may offer those grants to nonprofits. So what I recommend is that if you have a company that you do business with, or you're a vendor of, or you use as a supplier, or you use their service like FedEx. If you look at their website, um, look at the bottom, usually on the footer, and then it will say um, something about corporate responsibility or something about their company. So if they have any grant programs or grant opportunities, it will usually say those on the bottom. And then also for nonprofits is that if they have a foundation, you click on the bottom and then on the corporate responsibility, it may have a link to their foundation if you have one. They have one. So like Walmart has a foundation, and then I know that Target has a foundation as well. And then also industry associations. So researching industry associations are also a really good way to find these grants. Looking at industry specific associations or trade groups that sometimes provide grants or funding opportunities for businesses within their sector. So joining relevant associations can help you access these opportunities. So for example, I had mentioned those that are in food, and those are in restaurants. I know that some of you are in the restaurant industry. So there is a National Restaurant Association that I know they have a national one, and then they also have branches that are in different states and different cities. So I would recommend if you are in a specific association, look at those. So whether that one, the construction industry would have one, maybe uh, technology would have an industry specific association as well. Although one thing I see is almost for every industry, there is some sort of trade group or association that you can join. So joining them, not just doing research and grants, but also for networking opportunities. And then the last one would be local economic development agencies. So those are the ones that include your local agencies, chambers of commerce, or business development organizations that are in your area. So they may offer grants or be aware of local grant opportunities. So for example, PACE has had a grant and had many cohorts already on a specific district that they've been offered. And the reason why it's a specific district is because the funding came from that specific local government agency or local government. So a lot of some development agencies like PACE or chambers of commerce may get grants from government organizations or government agencies to facilitate business in that specific district or location. So, okay, so with that said, I'm gonna pause and ask on the chat. I know some of you have been looking for grants. Where have you found grants? I know Giovanni, I'm gonna ask you because you seem to have a lot of different grants that you've had. So please feel free to put on the chat and tell us what you've been doing to find those grants because we're all curious. Okay. Okay, so Giovanni said, I'm on a lot of listservs. So that's a great idea, right? So making sure that if you are I mean, I would suggest even, let's say if you're located in Long Beach. I'm saying that because it seems like a few of you are located in Long Beach. Looking at some of the economic development agencies in Long Beach, and then being on their listserv, because not only maybe they don't offer grants themselves, but they know of other grant opportunities that they can keep you abreast of. So great idea. Okay, I'm just gonna look at a few things. Um, Yes, yes, so Janice. Yeah, there was none for October. I didn't have a workshop, so I will be sending the list of available grants for November, and then that includes the recurring ones and also the ones with deadlines. So thank you. Okay. Yes, it seems like some of you have gotten grants from SBA and Lendistry, and Amelia has received grants 3 times. Um, well, excellent. So I'm glad that you guys can join this and share your experience a little bit. So if you've received the grant, yeah, if you've received multiple grants, And just, I know that you can do it from listservs, but tell us what type of research have you done? Okay, one question is how important is it to get a professional grant writer? I would say it depends. For me, anyway, my opinion is it depends on the size of the grant, right? So let's say if the grant is, because I know they have micro grants. If the grant is $5,000, and if a grant writer will cost you 2,500, then is it worth it? Is it worth it to get a grant writer? Is it worth it to just take a shot and do it yourself? Right? And but then if you have a grant, I know for nonprofits, you can get grants up to, millions of dollars. So then you kind of say, okay, well, is it worth it for me to pay a grant writer to get this type of grants, right? And then also make sure that you ask your grant writer the right questions. Are they familiar with those types of grants, with that type of industry? Because they have grants that are very technical. And so you want to make sure that if you're doing those really technical grants, is that you look at the grant writer's experience and see what their experience is with those types of industries. Um, yeah, question here is someone had asked, and so for those of you who had gotten grants, did you guys receive assistance for writing? So maybe we'll explore that later, but that seems to be a question that is pretty prevalent, and not just in this workshop, the previous workshops as well. So second one is after doing your research is understanding your eligibility criteria. So first, before you spend the time and the resources on applying for the grants, is making sure that your business meets all the eligibility requirement before applying. So this can include factors like your business size, industry location, and purpose of the grant. So for example, there are grants that say, I say in location, you have to be located doing business in the city of LA or city of Long Beach, or you have to be in business for over 2 years, or you have to be making revenues, right? So those are the types of criteria that I've seen frequently. Also, second one is check out the funding amount. So this one I goes along with whether a grant application or applying for that grant is worth it for you. Is it worth your time and effort? Is it worth the ROI? So for example, if the funding amount is, as I said, $5,000, right? But it'll cost you, I don't know, 10 hours to do it. So you have to weigh in and balance your ability to do your grants, and then also run your business at the same time. Because if you're doing these grants and applying for them, that means you have less time to work on your business. So unless, you can have someone else do it, right? So that goes along with the question of the grant writer. When do you hire a grant writer? Um, Okay. Last one, the other one is to check and pay close attention to the application instructions and requirements. And then making sure, very simple, right? But making sure you submit all necessary documents and information accurately and on time, because I would say it's almost like doing a request for proposal for procurement, or your resume. If they're saying that you need this, qualification, and if you don't have it, right, or if you need this necessary document and if you didn't submit it, how much more could they look at your application, right? So you want to make sure that you just strengthen your chances of having them look at it a second time. Okay. Second, the third one is when you do your research and then you say, okay, I got this grant. Okay, I'm eligible for it. Now it's actually tackling the grant application. So one thing I always recommend, and even if you're not doing a grant application, even just for your own sense of navigation and direction of your business, is preparing a solid business plan. Yeah, because most grant applications require that you have a detailed business plan outlining what your objectives are, your market analysis strategies, and then also the financial projections. So making sure that your plan is well thought out and it addresses all the necessary components. And then, as I said, once you do a business plan, is once you do this one, it will help you it will help it make it will make it easier for you to actually do the other grant applications, because a lot of times what I notice is that they usually use the same, they have the same questions, they have the same theories, they have, they're basically asking for the same information. So once you have this, then you can put it in your Google Drive or cloud or anything like that. Then you can just kind of pick and choose once write any subsequent grant applications. So first one is defining your business need or project. So this one, I would say for those of you that are more into nonprofits, you can cater this to your needs as a nonprofit, right? So making sure you define your business need or your project. So these are more for nonprofits. Also for companies that are that are applying for grants that are project specific versus operating, versus looking for a grant that is for the operating budget of your company. And then I will get more into that one. So defining your business need or project. Second is highlighting what your history is, your achievements, and then also your expertise. Highlighting the problem that your project addresses, your solution, and the potential impact. And then also clearly explaining why your project or your business needs the grant. So provide the evidence of demand or market research. Because as we mentioned before, a lot of these grants are a matter of public policy. So what they want to do is promote economic development to a certain demographic um, type, whether it's women or veterans or a certain, and then also location, if they wanted to stimulate the economy in a specific county or a city, right? So then you want to clearly explain why your project or why your business needs the grant. And then and then also if there's a problem that your company or your project addresses and what your solution is, and then the potential impact. Okay. So along with that one is highlighting the qualifications and experience of your team. Because for those grants that are looking, let's say, for businesses that are not startups, right? So they're looking, let's say, for companies that have been over, let's say the legacy program where you get a grant, and then part of the qualification for the LA one is that you have to be in business for over 20 years in LA, right? So they want to know that they will actually address the economic development of the demographic that they're targeting. So make sure you highlight the qualifications and experience of your team, highlighting what makes your project or company unique or innovative. And this one in particular is good for the one that is specific to R&D, the R&D grant. So I know that the SBA has one that is specific for R&D. Then clearly communicating the potential positive impact of your project on your business, the community, or the industry. So as you can see, this one is it's very applicable to nonprofits as well, right? So then you say, okay, if your project is on homelessness, what is the potential positive impact of your project on the community, right? And then for companies, let's say if you're doing a project specifically on clean energy or renewability or renewable energy or sustainability, so clearly communicating what they're looking for and the positive impact on that project, right, on the community. And then also crafting a compelling executive summary. So when you're doing a business plan, and for some of you, I'm sure that many of you have done a business plan for different purposes, whether it's for lending or your own personal roadmap. So you do the different sections first, right? And then the last part is doing the executive summary, because if you're going to be summarizing everything, you want to make sure that it's compelling. And if I only have time right now to read your executive summary, I want to make sure that it catches me so then I can look at the rest of your business plan. Okay. And then also demonstrating your financial need. We've spoken about it before, but making sure that you provide a detailed budget that clearly outlines how you'll be using the grant funds, and then ensure that it aligns with the grant program's guidelines. So basically, a lot of times, most grant applications, I would say, especially the ones that are from private companies, like the one I can remember right now is the Verizon grant. is that it will tell you that if you, let's say you're asking for $10,000, how are you going to be using the monies once it comes to you? So then they want you to budget um, how you're going to be allocating the money if you receive it, right? But then whether the level of detail that the budget requires is something that you have to make sure that you read carefully. Sometimes they'll provide a template, sometimes they won't, right? So a lot of times it's really gauging what's something in the middle. You don't want it so broad that it doesn't, that someone who looks at it can really understand what half of the budget is. But you also don't want it to be very, very detailed because it's cumbersome and time consuming for you. So you just have to make sure that you find that perfect balance. Um, so with that one, just a couple of tips on how to do the budget. So tip one is understand what the funder is looking for. And so this one, think of it both for business grants and nonprofit grants, right? So understanding what the funder is looking for. So the funder could be the family foundation, the state, the government agency, whoever is giving you the grant. So what are they looking for? At the basic, what format or template are they looking for, right? So a lot of times nowadays everything is online and you fill out a form and then it's very easy, right? But before, maybe you had to put it on Word and they had a specific template, right? But now I think nowadays it's very easy to follow this one, the format. Second is, are they looking for a budget for a specific program slash project, or is it for your operating budget? So this one, think of it also for business and then also for nonprofits, right? So let's say if you are a business and you're looking for a grant, let's say you're a clean energy company and then one of your programs would be on sustainability, or yes, let's say sustainability or ev, let's say for ev chargers, right? So are you looking for a grant specifically for that project, or are you looking for a grant for your operating budget, which is for your company? So you have to make sure that the budget that you're presenting to them is clear, whether you're going to be using that for a program or a project or for your company in general. And then also looking at what type of expenses are eligible. So let's go back to the $10,000. So let's say the grant is $10,000. And then they ask you to give a budget or a breakdown of what you'll be using it for. But then they say, okay, but then your expenses, you can't use travel and leisure, or you can't use it for food, right? Or maybe yes, let's say for food or networking. So then if you did not take a look exactly at what the funder restricts as the type of expenses that are eligible, and you've put that in your template, then A, you may get disqualified, right? And B, it just shows that, okay, well, if you're asking for 10,000, but then 5,000 of it would be for travel and leisure and food, then you're not going to get the full amount, right? Or you may not get it at all. And then what time period are the expenses included? Are they looking for expenses for the next period, for the next quarter, or for the next year, right? And then also, what level of detail are the funders looking for? So this goes along with the slide previously, which is making sure that you provide a detailed budget, but a detailed enough budget that clearly outlines how you use the grant funds. So what level of detail are the funders looking for? So some of them I've seen an actual template where they say, okay, um, they will put the expenses down, and then you just put the amount that you'll be allocating for that one. And then second one would be working with your partners and costs, right? And with your partners, so this one, um, let's say if you have both direct and indirect costs, and we'll talk about that later, and then also program versus operating costs. So we've spoken about this program versus operating, with my example that if you are a clean tech company, but then you're applying for a grant specifically on your program on clean energy or like clean air. something very specific. So you want to make sure that you're demonstrating your financial need on the program level versus operating level, right? And then the other one is in conjunction with what we talked about versus direct and indirect costs. So direct costs are the ones where you can identify the expenses that are specifically linked to a particular grant or a project. So, for example, if your project is on clean energy, and then one of the expenses that you're looking for is that you wanted to work directly with marketing it to a specific demographic, right? So let's say clean energy, but it's for those who are located in the certain zip codes or the city of LA. So then so that marketing expense is direct because you can directly connect it to that particular project or activity. Versus indirect costs are those that are necessary for the general operation of the organization and then the conduct of the activities that it performs, but it's not a direct activity expense. So, for example, with that one, would be if you have going back to the project, let's say you're a clean tech company and you have a project specifically that you're working on with sustainability. But you have to, let's say you have an admin, you have an admin person, labor, maybe some indirect labor costs that you cannot directly relate to that particular project. So those would be indirect costs, right? So here are some examples. So some direct costs are salary and wages. So let's say if you're the marketing specialist and you're working directly on marketing that specific program to the demographic that they're looking for, materials, equipment and tools, planning activities, training related costs, and postage. So those are the ones that you can say, okay, I can directly see how this impacts the program that I'm asking a grant for. And then examples of indirect costs would be indirect salaries. So I can see there's also salaries, right? Where there's direct salary, but an indirect salary would be, yeah, I say admin that doesn't directly work on the program. Also depreciation of facilities, facility occupancy costs, liability insurance, taxes and accounting fees, and then rent and utilities. Okay. And then, oops, there you go. And then the other tip is making sure that your grant narrative aligns with your budget because there are two things that you'll see when you're looking at these applications. First is that you'll see, okay, give me a budget, right? So it'll be maybe in an Excel spreadsheet and say, what is your budget? $10,000. How will you be using it for? But then after that, they want you to give a narrative. So why do you need these, why are you asking for 40% of the budget in marketing, right? So then or why are you asking for 20% of it with labor, right? So one thing you want to make sure is that when you're doing your grant narrative, that it actually makes sense and it aligns with your budget. So for example, if you wanted to use and need 40% of the grant that you're applying for marketing, your grant narrative it better say that you're using, you need marketing because of this, and the marketing expenses are this. For example, I need marketing for the sustainability program because whatever it is, right? And then, so you have to make sure that if I'm a third party looking at your budget and looking at your narrative, that there's a connection and I can see the connection clearly. Then the other thing I recommend is to gather supporting documents. So as I mentioned earlier, same thing with preparing your business plan. You're going to need it not for one grant, you're going to be needing it for multiple grants because, as I said, a lot of the questions that they ask are the same. So then what you want to make sure is you have it handy, especially if you find a grant that has a very short deadline, like it's due, in several days. And one thing you don't want to do is scramble and find, responses to these types of questions, right? So making sure you have that handy with you. Then the also one is to gather, along with that one, is to gather the supporting documents. So making sure that you include any relevant supporting documents such as financial statements, tax returns, business license, or letters of recommendation to strengthen your application. I always say, along with your business plan, first do your business plan, and alongside with that one, gather your documents already. Because if it's something where they require some sort of threshold on the income, they're going to ask for a financial statement or a proof that that is your income, right? Or they may ask for your tax return. Or if they say, okay, this one is limited to the city of Long Beach residents or Long Beach um, business owners. So they want to make sure that you have your business license. Or if they need letters of recommendation, right? So one thing you want to do, the last thing you want to do is scramble, to your referral sources and get those letters. So you just have to make sure that you have them handy. Okay, and then the other one, I would say very simple, but also very important, is to proofread and review. So make sure that you thoroughly proofread your application to ensure it is free of errors and it clearly communicates your message. So have someone else review it as well to catch any overlooked mistakes or inconsistencies. One thing I had mentioned earlier would be um and this is what a lot of people stumble on would be the budget, right? So anything like, let's say, if you have, as I said, the allocation of the monies that you're asking for, and then also the grant narrative, so make sure that you have someone look at it and say, does it make sense? Do you see the connection and the correlation between the budget, right? The numbers that I am seeking money for versus the grant narrative. Does it make sense when you put them side by side? So this is where um, I'm gonna chime in about the types of stuff that we do at PACE. So this is something that we can help you with. And because PACE is run through government programs and then government grants, so we can also do this. We do these services free of charge. So that someone else reviewing it could be me or someone from PACE to help make sure that you get the best chances of getting a grant. So, so with that said, I think what I'm gonna do is we have a few minutes. I'm gonna go through the chat and see if there are any questions. Um, Let me see. Yeah. Okay, perfect. So it seems like someone had taken the entrepreneur workshop in August, and Swan had a document that helped you write the business plan. Yes, yeah. I use that to help me with my grant application. Perfect. Yes. So I work with Swan at the Women's Business Center. But yes, so there is a template that we have that can help you write the business plan, and it could be as robust or as short as you want, right? Because a business plan is a living document. So as your business changes or you're pivoting, your document should also reflect that one. Okay. Let me see. Are there any grants for manufacturers? So this is Jorge. So, okay, and Jorge, I'm gonna ask you where are you located? What city or county are you located in? Okay, one in LA. Okay. Um, And then the other one is on Lancaster. Okay, so the reason why I asked that is that if I would go back to the typical sources of grant, right? When you do your research, A is industry specific grants. So if you're industry in manufacturing, and if in manufacturing there's something specific, so for example, I think you said you do pallets, so I'm assuming that is a wooden product, right? So aside from looking at those industry associations that are manufacturing, see if there's anything a bit more specific about, you know, wooden products, for example, and then looking at those trade associations and then seeing if they offer grants that are specific to those types of companies. And then also the location is looking at the City of LA website, their government website, the city one, and then also Lancaster to see if they're giving out grants specific to you. And then also, along with that one, is if you have a specific status, right? If you're a veteran, if you are a certain demographic, right? those are the ones that you wanted to take a look at. But yeah, so at this moment, I'm not sure if there are any specific grants for manufacturers, but the ones that I see are based more on geographic location and then also demographic, geographic and demographic. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so the same thing. Winnetka, um, can you, hi, this is Valerie. Can you tell me where Winnetka is? I'm not sure. Okay. Okay. Yeah, and then while Valerie's coming back, okay, San Fernando Valley. Okay. Yeah, okay. So for that one, let me see. So pest control, I think I would give the same type of recommendation as I gave to Jorge with the wooden pallets, is look for industry associations that are specific to the company that you have. So I don't know. I'm trying to see. Pest control, if yeah, I'm pretty sure there's some sort of like trade association that is under, right? So I would look into that and then also look at your location. So you look at the county of LA and then also the city. So, yeah, same thing with the childcare provider. I know that this has been a hot topic. I've seen some questions come on childcare. So I will actually do a little bit of research on childcare. Offhand, I haven't seen anything, but one thing I would take a look at would be, you know, looking at demographics, right? So if your name's Amelia. So yeah, so if it's um a grant that is specific for women-owned businesses, that's something that you can kind of take a look at. And then also looking at locations and then also yeah, the geographic location in the industry. What kind of grants are available for clean tech and renewable? Okay. So hi Albert. So grants are available for clean tech and renewable energy. So one thing I would recommend here is go to the Department of Energy. So the US Department of Energy, I know that they have grants. So for example, I know that they give out grants. Let's say if you wanted to put EV chargers or something like that in, if you own a building. But yes, that's what I would recommend is going to the Department of Energy. Okay. Okay, so this one, okay. So there is one, I think it said, the question was, do you look for grants on where you live or where your business is? So if it's something like, let's say the city of LA, usually it's where your business is located or where your business license is. However, if it's based on demographics, like, you know, your woman-owned business, your veteran-owned business, your Asian-owned or Latino-owned, then then your it doesn't matter what your location is. Okay, it says through Verizon 2 times I was denied. Yes, Farhad, I'm so sorry. Yes, the Verizon one seems to be very popular, and so it seems like there are a lot of people who get denied for that one. However, one thing a few months ago, I had someone from Verizon speak, right? So they're the ones that are involved with the grants. So the biggest tip that he gave the group was that, I think for the Verizon grant, you actually um you actually have to do certain you're required to do certain modules or programs, and I think you have to do at least three, right? So he said that the biggest tip that he can give someone is to do as many of the modules as possible, because I don't know if they have their own algorithm or something like that, but it seems like the more you can do, then the better. But yes, yes, it's a bummer, but it seems like everyone everyone I know gets denied for that one. So, okay, grants. Oh, okay, here. So thank you, Gabriela. So there is a grant here from the Department of Pesticide Regulation Alliance Program. Yes. So the good thing that you brought this up. So there is a website for the federal government called grants.gov. So that one is good for both grants that are business grants and also nonprofit grants, because the federal government will give these opportunities, right? So let's say they need one for, let me just say, technical consulting or economic empowerment, and it will give you eligibility. So they will say eligible applicants, small businesses, they will say whether it's a small business, nonprofit, 501(c)(3), schools. So that's one thing that you can give, that you can take a look at. However, the disclaimer that I give is that you have to make sure that you're eligible, right? So the type of structure entity that you are. So just make sure before you kind of go into the rabbit hole, make sure you make sure that you're eligible. Okay. Okay. So with that said, oops, do I have, there you go. So if you have any questions at all, I know we have about a minute. Please screenshot this page, reach out to me. So for those of you who have gotten grants, I would love to pick your brain and see if there's any grants that you have seen so far and where you have had the best luck or best success, right? Please reach out to me. And then for those of you who are looking to get assistance on grants, reach out to me as well, because one thing I can do is help you review it on the back end. Okay. And what about agriculture? So agriculture, you know what, since one of the comments here gave me an idea. So this one for agriculture, I would look at the USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture, and then see if you see any grants there. So look at grants.gov. And then I'm not sure, Tracy, if you are a nonprofit or for profit, but then filter for whatever entity you are, and then you can look for agricultural grants that way. Okay. So I'll just give you, do you have referrals on who can write grants? Yes. Yes, I do. So, and then just let me know if you're looking for grants for business or nonprofit, then I can direct you. Will this be? Yes. So this meeting, I actually give this meeting every month. Um, and I have different guests, but this month you only got me. But next month we will have someone from the California Go Biz program who will talk about the grants that are specifically for those who want to expand to different countries, right? So it's more of a trade grant. But that one is very, very, very cool because it gives you not just, some of them offer the grants to if you want to attend an expo, for example. So I want to make sure that you touch base on that one, that you attend that one. Okay, yes. For Lilith, yes. For nonprofit, yes. Please reach out to me and I can give you a recommendation for someone who does the writing for nonprofits. So with that said, thank you so much for your time. Please just give me a few days to prepare the grant list. I will send you the most current grant, and then make sure you tune in. Our next grant workshop will be December 17th, and that's when we will have a special guest from the California GoBiz program who'll talk about export grants. So for those of you who want to expand overseas, that would be an excellent, excellent workshop webinar to go to. Thank you so much, everyone. I always appreciate your time. And then I will see you. Hopefully you reach out to me. So thank you, everyone.